Chapter 1. The Great Pyramid of Giza. The immortal wonder of ancient Egypt at dawn on the Giza Plateau. The first rays of the sun pour over an endless sea of sand. Golden light washes across massive stone blocks, and a colossal triangular silhouette pierces the horizon. This is the Great Pyramid of Khufu, only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world still standing, defying the sands of time for over 4.5 millennia. 1. Origins and vision. Around 2580 BCE, Egypt flourished under the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, known to the Greeks as Kia. This was the height of the Old Kingdom civilization that saw its kings not merely as rulers, but as divine beings, earthly incarnations of the gods. To the Egyptians, death was not an end, but a passage to the afterlife, and every pharaoh required an eternal home for his soul. For Khufu, that home would not be ordinary. It would be the most magnificent structure the world had ever seen. He summoned Egypt's greatest architects, engineers, priests, and tens of thousands of skilled workers and laborers. Together, they embarked on a monumental task, building the Great Pyramid at Giza. 2. The construction marvel. Over more than 20 years, approximately 2.3 million stone blocks were quarried, shaped, transported, and placed with extraordinary precision. Each block weighed between 2.5 and 15 tons. There were no cranes, no steel tools, no modern machinery, only wooden sledges, copper chisels, rope, and the sheer determination of human muscle. The completed pyramid originally stood 146.6 meters, 481 feet, tall, its outer casing covered in gleaming white Tura limestone. Under the Egyptian sun, it shone like a giant beacon visible from miles away. Inside, a maze of corridors, chambers, and concealed passageways guarded the pharaoh's burial chamber against grave robbers, though history would prove that even this masterful design could not keep looters out forever. 3. The Age of Glory. When it was finished, the Great Pyramid was more than a tomb. It was a statement of divine authority. Envoys from foreign lands, traders along the Nile, and pilgrims from distant regions came to witness the impossible man-made mountains of stone, rising in perfect symmetry from the desert floor. The pyramid's shape, pointing sharply toward the heavens, symbolized the sun's rays and the pharaoh's ascension to join Ra, the supreme sun god. To the ancient Egyptians, Khufu's eternal home was a bridge between the mortal world and the divine. 4. Erosion, loss, and survival. Over the centuries, earthquakes shook Egypt, armies marched across its deserts, and empires rose and fell. The gleaming limestone casing was stripped away, repurposed for other buildings, leaving the rougher core stones exposed. Thieves broke into the burial chambers, and treasures once meant to accompany Khufu into eternity vanished. And yet, the pyramid itself stood firm. Its base remained perfectly level, its alignment with the cardinal points astonishingly accurate within fractions of a degree. Even today, engineers and archaeologists debate how such precision was achieved with Bronze Age tools. 5. An eternal legacy. The Great Pyramid of Giza is not simply a relic of ancient Egypt. It is a testament to human ambition, ingenuity, and endurance. Millions of visitors each year stand at its base, craning their necks upward, feeling humbled by its immensity. The very stones seem to whisper across the ages, telling stories of sweat, sacrifice, and vision. To this day, it remains one of humanity's greatest architectural and cultural achievements, a reminder that when human beings unite under a single purpose, they can create wonders that outlast empires, weather, and time itself. Chapter 2. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. A green dream in the desert. The air above Babylon shimmered with heat. Beyond the massive mud brick walls, the Euphrates River snaked lazily through the desert. Traders bustled through the city's gates, bringing silk from the east, cedar from Lebanon, and spices from Arabia. But among the many marvels of the ancient city, one stood out in whispered tales and travelers' accounts: a mountain of greenery. Rising in the heart of the arid land, the legendary Hanging Gardens of Babylon. 1. A gift of love and longing. The origins of the gardens are wrapped in both history and myth. According to ancient writers like Strabo and Philo of Byzantium, the gardens were built by King Nebuchadnezzar II in the 6th century BC. The king's beloved wife, Queen Amytis of Media, had grown up in the lush, green mountains of her homeland. The endless Babylonian desert left her longing for cool hills, blooming flowers, and the scent of pine carried by mountain breezes. To ease her homesickness, Nebuchadnezzar vowed to recreate her native landscape in the middle of his sun-baked empire. What rose from his vision was unlike anything the ancient world had ever seen: a man-made paradise, suspended above the city. 2. Architecture of a miracle. Descriptions of the gardens speak of an immense terraced structure, possibly 75 feet high, each level planted with trees, vines, and exotic flowers. The hanging in their name didn't mean they dangled from above, but rather that they overhung on tiered balconies, creating the illusion of greenery floating in the air. The true engineering marvel lay in the irrigation system. Babylon received little rain, so water had to be lifted from the Euphrates using a chain pump mechanism, buckets attached to a continuous loop, turned by human or animal power. This allowed streams of fresh water to cascade down the terraces, nourishing plants that had no business thriving in the desert. 3. A living jewel in the desert in its prime. The gardens would have been a feast for the senses. Date palms swayed gently in the warm breeze. Fragrant jasmine intertwined with roses, their petals damp from morning mist. Pomegranates, figs, and apricots grew alongside towering shade trees. The sound of flowing water echoed through the terraces, a rarity in the arid heart of Mesopotamia. For visitors, it must have felt like stepping into a dream. Merchants and diplomats alike carried stories of the gardens across continents, cementing Babylon's reputation as a city of unmatched splendor. 4. Disappearance into legend. And yet, for all their fame, no definitive archaeological evidence of the gardens has ever been found. Some historians believe they may never have existed at all, that they were a poetic exaggeration, or perhaps located in Nineveh, the Assyrian capital, rather than Babylon. Others think they were destroyed by earthquakes, floods, or the slow decay of neglect after the fall of Babylon to the Persians in 539 BCE. The absence of physical remains has only deepened their allure. The hanging gardens live on in imagination, a symbol of what human love and ambition might create, even in the harshest of environments. 5. Legacy of the gardens. Whether they were myth or reality, the hanging gardens of Babylon remain one of the most romantic and mysterious wonders ever conceived. They represent not only the technological genius of ancient engineers, but also the human desire to bring beauty and comfort to those we love. Even today, the idea of creating green spaces in inhospitable places, rooftop gardens, vertical farms, and desert oases owes something to the legend of Nebuchadnezzar's gift to his queen. The dream that greenery can bloom in the desert still inspires architects and visionaries around the world. Chapter 3. The statue of Zeus at Olympia. Glory of the Greek gods. The air in Olympia was heavy with the scent of olive trees and the distant sound of cheering crowds. Every 4 years, athletes from all over Greece gathered here to honor Zeus, king of the gods, in a festival that combined sport, religion, and national pride. But beyond the stadiums and the sacred grove stood something even more inspiring, a towering figure of Zeus himself, carved and crafted to such perfection that visitors claimed it could move, speak, and strike them down with a glance. This was the statue of Zeus at Olympia, one of the most celebrated wonders of the ancient world. 1. A commission worthy of the king of gods. Around 435 BCE, the Hellenes custodians of Olympia's sanctuary decided to create a monument worthy of their patron deity. The temple of Zeus, already standing in the sacred altus, was majestic, but its central hall was empty. They summoned Phidias, the greatest sculptor of classical Greece, renowned for his work on the statue of Athena in the Parthenon. Phidias accepted, knowing this commission would be his crowning achievement. 2. Crafting a god inside his workshop beside the temple, Phidias envisioned a figure that would not just depict Zeus, but embody his divine presence. The statue rose over 12 meters 40 feet high, so large that if Zeus were to stand, his head would pierce the temple roof. Phidias used a wooden framework, over which he applied plates of ivory to form the god's skin, smooth and luminous like living flesh. For the robes and ornaments, he used sheets of beaten gold, which caught the flickering torchlight in brilliant flashes. Precious stones adorned the throne, while intricate carvings told stories of the gods and heroes. In his right hand, Zeus held a small statue of Nike, the goddess of victory, and in his left, a scepter topped with an eagle, symbol of his dominion over the skies. His gaze was calm yet commanding, a reminder that even kings bowed to him. 3. Awe and devotion for centuries. Pilgrims came from across the Greek world and beyond to stand before the statue. Some described feeling as though Zeus himself were present in the temple. The Roman historian Dio Chrysostom once wrote that anyone who saw the statue would forget all earthly troubles, as if standing before the god in person. The Olympic Games, held in Zeus's honor, only heightened its significance. Victorious athletes would dedicate their crowns to the statue, while rulers sent offerings to gain the god's favor. 4. Decline and disappearance. The fate of the statue is shrouded in uncertainty. By the 4th century CE, the Olympic Games had been banned by the Christian Emperor Theodosius I, and the sanctuary began to fall into neglect. Some accounts claim the statue was moved to Constantinople, where it perished in a fire in 475 CE. Others believe it was destroyed in Olympia itself by an earthquake or fire. Today, nothing remains but the temple's foundations and fragments of Phidias's workshop, where archaeologists have found tools, molds, and even a cup inscribed with his name, a silent signature from the man who dared to sculpt a god. 5. Legacy of Zeus's image. Even in absence, the statue of Zeus continues to influence art and iconography. The serene power in his expression, the harmonious proportions, and the grandeur of his form became the standard for depicting supreme authority in Western art for centuries. It was more than a statuette, was a meeting point between mortals and the divine, a reminder of humanity's longing to see the face of its gods. Chapter 4. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus. Moonlight and the power of a goddess on the western coast of Asia Minor, where the waters of the Aegean Sea kissed the land, stood the wealthy city of Ephesus. Merchants, pilgrims, and travelers from distant lands arrived daily, their ships heavy with goods and their hearts filled with anticipation. For in Ephesus there stood a temple so grand, so resplendent, that it was said to outshine all other structures in the known world, the Temple of Artemis, goddess of the hunt, the moon, and protector of women. 1. The birth of a marvel. The cult of Artemis in Ephesus dated back centuries before the grand temple's construction. The goddess was worshipped not just as the virgin huntress of Greek myth, but also as a fertility deity, merging Hellenic and Anatolian traditions. Around 550 BCE, the wealthy Lydian king Croesus funded the building of a temple that would honor her above all others. The architect Chersiphon of Naissus and his son Metagenes designed a masterpiece, 115 meters long, 55 meters wide, supported by over 120 towering Ionic columns, each 18 meters high. The temple was built entirely of gleaming marble, a rare and costly material, and adorned with intricate reliefs depicting scenes from mythology. 2. A sanctuary and a marketplace of faith. The Temple of Artemis was more than a place of worship. It was a bank, a marketplace, and a cultural hub. Merchants stored their wealth within its sacred walls, knowing that the goddess's protection deterred thieves. Pilgrims brought offerings of gold, silver, and fine textiles, and artisans displayed their finest works under its colonnades. At night, under the light of the moon, the celestial body closely associated with Artemis the temple seemed almost otherworldly. Torches illuminated the marble so that it glowed with a soft, silvery hue, as if the goddess herself had touched it. 3. Destruction and rebirth. Greatness often attracts envy or madness. In 356 BCE, on the very night that Alexander the Great was born, a man named Herostratus set fire to the temple, seeking immortality through infamy. The marble cracked from the heat, the roof collapsed, and priceless artworks were lost to the flames. Ephesians rebuilt the temple even grander than before, refusing to let their devotion be extinguished. When Alexander offered to fund the reconstruction, the proud citizens declined, saying it was not fitting for a god to build a temple for another god. The new temple retained its monumental scale and exquisite beauty, and for centuries it drew visitors from across the Mediterranean. 4. Final days. Time and conquest, however, were relentless. In 262 CE, the temple was plundered and destroyed by the Goths. It was rebuilt yet again but never regained its former glory. By the late Roman Empire, as Christianity spread and pagan worship was outlawed, the temple fell into disuse. Earthquakes and neglect reduced it to rubble. Today, only a single column stands on the site, pieced together from fragments found during excavations, a silent sentinel over the marshy plain where the goddess's house once stood. 5. The enduring spirit of Artemis. Though the temple has vanished, Artemis's presence lingers in art, literature, and myth. Her image, blending Greek grace and Anatolian power, continues to inspire. The Temple of Artemis remains a symbol of devotion, civic pride, and the eternal human desire to create something that reaches beyond the mortal world, something that, under the right light, might touch the divine. Chapter 5. The Mausoleum at Halicarnassus, a tomb for love and eternity on the southwestern coast of Asia Minor, where the turquoise waters of the Aegean Sea met rugged hills, stood the prosperous city of Halicarnassus. In the 4th century BCE, this was the seat of Mausolus, a powerful satrap of the Persian Empire. Under his rule, Halicarnassus flourished, its harbors bustling with trade, its streets lined with grand buildings. Yet the monument that would etch Mausolus's name into history was not one he built in life, but one erected after his death. The Mausoleum at Halicarnassus, a tomb so magnificent it became one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. 1. Love and grief. Mausolus ruled from 377 to 353 BCE, alongside his wife and sister Artemisia, following a tradition common in royal dynasties of the time. They shared both political ambition and deep personal affection. When Mausolus died in 353 BCE, Artemisia was inconsolable. Her grief drove her to commission a tomb that would not only honor her husband, but immortalize his legacy. The project was entrusted to the most celebrated Greek architects and sculptors of the era, Satyros and Pythias for the design, and for master sculptors, Scopas, Leochares, Bryaxes, and Timotheus, each responsible for one side of the monument. 2. An architectural masterpiece, the mausoleum was a unique fusion of Greek, Egyptian, and Lycian design elements. Standing about 45 meters (148 feet) high, it was built on a rectangular platform, surrounded by Ionic columns. Above the colonnade rose a stepped pyramid of 24 levels, crowned with a massive marble chariot drawn by 4 horses symbolizing Mausolus's eternal journey. Every surface of the structure was richly decorated with reliefs and statues. Battles between Greeks and Amazons, centaurs and Lapiths, and scenes from Mausolus's reign were carved in exquisite detail. The sculptures were so lifelike that visitors claimed they could feel the movement of muscles beneath the marble. 3. The tomb as a symbol of power more than a burial place. The mausoleum proclaimed the power and prestige of Halicarnassus. Its commanding position overlooking the harbor ensured that all who entered the city saw it, an unmistakable reminder of Mausolus's greatness. For Artemisia, it was also an act of devotion. Ancient accounts claim she mixed her husband's ashes with wine and drank them, a gesture of love so extreme it became legend. 4. Centuries of survival and destruction. The mausoleum stood for over 1,500 years, surviving earthquakes and invasions that destroyed many other wonders. But in the 13th century, a series of powerful earthquakes reduced it to ruins. In the 15th century, the Knights of St. John used its stones to build the castle of Bodrum, unaware they were dismantling one of history's most extraordinary monuments. Fragments of its sculptures eventually found their way to the British Museum, where they can still be seen today, offering glimpses of its former splendor. 5. An eternal name, though the mausoleum no longer stands. Its legacy endures. In language itself, the word mausoleum has come to mean any grand tomb. It remains a lasting testament to love, grief, and the human desire to memorialize those we cannot bear to forget. In Artemisia's act of building it, we see both a queen's devotion and a ruler's ambition, a structure meant to outlast time, and in many ways, it has. Chapter 6. The Colossus of Rhodes. The giant who guarded the harbor, the island of Rhodes, bathed in Aegean sunlight, had long been a crossroads of trade, culture, and power. Its harbors teemed with merchant ships from Egypt, Phoenicia, Greece, and beyond. But in the early 3rd century BC, Rhodes was more than a wealthy port. It was a proud city-state that had just repelled one of the most formidable sieges in the ancient world. From this triumph would rise a monument so massive and awe-inspiring that sailors would speak of it for centuries. The Colossus of Rhodes. 1. Victory and inspiration. In 305 BCE, Demetrius I of Macedon, known as Demetrius Poliorcetes the Besieger, launched a massive assault on Rhodes. His forces brought siege towers, catapults, and war machines of unprecedented size, including the massive Helepolis, a wheeled fortress bristling with weaponry. Against all odds, the Rhodians held their ground for over a year, until Demetrius withdrew, leaving much of his siege equipment behind. Rather than see these machines as reminders of war, the Rhodians sold the bronze and iron, using the proceeds to fund a monument celebrating their victory and their patron deity, Helios, the sun god. 2. Building the giant. The project was entrusted to Chares of Lindos, a pupil of the famed sculptor Lysippos. The Colossus would stand about 33 meters, 108 feet, tall, nearly the height of the Statue of Liberty's pedestal, and be constructed of bronze plates over an iron framework. The core was filled with stone blocks to stabilize the massive structure. The construction took 12 years, beginning around 292 BCE. Ancient accounts suggest the statue stood near the entrance to the harbor, though the popular image of it straddling the harbor mouth is a later myth. In reality, it was more likely positioned on a solid base, inland, still visible to ships as they approached. 3. A symbol of pride. The Colossus depicted Helios crowned with radiant sunbeams, one hand shading his eyes as he looked toward the horizon, the other perhaps holding a torch or spear. His polished bronze surface would have glimmered in the Mediterranean sun, a beacon of Rhodian independence and strength. For sailors entering the harbor, the sight of the giant would have been both reassuring and humbling, a reminder that Rhodes stood under the watchful gaze of its god. 4. The fall of the giant. Tragically, the Colossus's glory was short-lived. In 226 BCE, just 56 years after its completion, a powerful earthquake struck Rhodes. The statue snapped at the knees, its massive upper body crashing to the ground. The Rhodians, fearing they had offended Helios, chose not to rebuild it. The remains lay where they fell for over 800 years, still drawing visitors who marveled at the sheer scale of its shattered limbs. The historian Pliny the Elder wrote that even broken, the fingers of the statue were larger than most men could encircle with their arms, and the hollow bronze plates were big enough to walk through. 5. A legacy in bronze. In 654 CE, invading forces reportedly melted down the remains and sold the bronze as scrap. The Colossus was gone, but its legend endured, inspiring later monumental statues and the very idea of the colossal in art and architecture. Today, Rhodes remembers its giant not only as a marvel of engineering, but as a symbol of resilience, the embodiment of a people who, against overwhelming odds, stood their ground and celebrated their freedom with one of the most ambitious sculptures the world has ever seen. Chapter 7. The Lighthouse of Alexandria. The torch of the ancient world. At the mouth of the bustling harbor of Alexandria, where the blue waters of the Mediterranean met the North African coast, rose a tower of stone and light so remarkable that it guided sailors for nearly 1,500 years. This was the Lighthouse of Alexandria, also known as the Pharos of Alexandria, beacon that shone across seas and centuries, counted among the 7 wonders of the ancient world. 1. A city of ambition. In 331 BCE, Alexander the Great founded Alexandria on the site of a small fishing village. Designed to be a gateway between Greece and Egypt, the city grew rapidly into a hub of culture, commerce, and learning. But its position on Egypt's treacherous Mediterranean coast came with danger. Reefs, shifting sands, and violent storms threatened ships approaching its busy port. After Alexander's death, his general Ptolemy, the first Soter, who became ruler of Egypt, decided to build a great lighthouse to guide mariners safely to shore. The project was completed during the reign of his son Ptolemy II, Philadelphus, around 280 BCE. 2. Engineering a marvel. The lighthouse was built on Pharos Island, connected to the mainland by a long causeway known as the Heptas. The architect Sostratus of Cnidus designed a 3-tiered structure, a square base, a cylindrical middle section, and a smaller, circular tower on top. The total height is estimated between 100 and 130 meters, 330 to 430 feet, making it one of the tallest man-made structures in the ancient world. At its summit burned an immense open flame by night and polished bronze mirrors by day, reflecting the sun's rays far out to sea. Some accounts suggest its light could be seen up to 50 kilometers, 30 miles away, an extraordinary feat for the time. 3. The beacon of the Mediterranean. The Pharos was more than a navigational tool. It was a symbol of Alexandria's wealth and ambition. Ships arriving from across the Mediterranean knew they were entering one of the greatest cities of the ancient world, home to the famed Library of Alexandria, magnificent palaces, and a cosmopolitan population of Greeks, Egyptians, and traders from every corner of the known world. Travelers described the lighthouse as gleaming white in the sun, its form both graceful and commanding. For many sailors, it was the first sight of Egypt and the last they would see when departing, a constant companion on their voyages. 4. Centuries of service and decline. The lighthouse of Alexandria stood for over a millennium, surviving countless storms, invasions, and political upheavals. However, a series of devastating earthquakes between 956 and 1323 CE gradually damaged and toppled it. By the late Middle Ages, it had disappeared from the skyline, its stones reused in fortifications, including the citadel of Cape, which still stands on the same site today. 5. A lasting legacy. The Ferrous gave its name to all lighthouses. Ferrous became the Latin and later European word for these beacons of safety. Modern underwater archaeology has revealed massive stone blocks and statues submerged near the harbor, believed to be remnants of the Great Tower. Though it no longer lights the way for sailors, the Lighthouse of Alexandria continues to shine in human memory, a reminder of an age when architecture and engineering combined to serve both beauty and necessity. It was, in every sense, a torch of the ancient world, guiding not only ships, but also the ambitions of a civilization determined to leave its mark on history.